Hello, sophomores. I hope you all had a lovely spring break and that you got some well-deserved rest and relaxation. Hopefully, you're ready to go to finish off your school year and this TTI unit, which is Multimedia Design and Web Design. This is week 18 of this unit, so we don't have too much to go into the end, but we are closing off on our unit. From this point forward, we'll be working just on your website. There are no more skills to teach regarding how to make a website. Now we are working on the application of these skills. So for this week, what you will be submitting is a zip file of essentially the file that you worked on in a cohort. The only differences is that this time you will be making your own splash page. And so, as you remember in cohort, it wasn't too difficult of a process. It just takes some time to get the hang of it. And so something I might recommend is that for you to go back and look at how we did it and the code that we did to do it. You can essentially hack it so that you can just insert your own images and your own text so that you are able to create a splash page for your website. And so this splash page will be included in this zip file, as well as what you're going to do is that you're going to take the website that we worked on in cohort, and it all should be good to go because myself and the other instructors in the room made sure that all of you had good websites. And so what you're going to do is that you're going to keep the content that was in there. So all the text that we wrote up about Kim's mother and herself, we're going to keep all that in there, essentially the HTML. And then what you're going to do now is that you're going to apply your design, the design that you've been working on the past 2 weeks, that we have reviewed and approved of. If you hadn't gotten approved of yet, or you haven't gotten feedback on it, please feel free to reach out to us to make sure that you get that approval first before you apply to your website. And so this is essentially the assignment for this week. Next, I included as well the slicing activity prompt. So going back to cohort, I taught you all how to slice. However, on some occasions I either rushed through it or went through it too fast or didn't get to it as much as we could have. And so I have included the activity prompt to teach you how to slice. And so just as a reminder, slicing is useful to apply your design to your website. And so the general process that this consists of is that you're going to have your design made already on Illustrator. You're just going to slice. You're going to cut off the small pieces of each area of your website, and then you're going to insert that image into the correct place into your code. And so it's a simple 3-step process. However, if you have any questions or you can't follow along exactly with the activity prompt, please feel free to reach out to us and email us. And so this is for this file is going to be included in this week's module so that you can take a look at it. And so just to review a couple of things, you all should have a good foundation in HTML and CSS by now. If you have any questions, again, please let us know. There's also other resources like Code Academy, W3 Schools, just in case if you want to refresh your skills on some of these aspects. We know that HTML has to do with the content of your website, and CSS has to do with the design of your website. So it's important that as you code along and you're working on your website that you pay attention to details. Going back to the debugging activity, I couldn't run a lot of your websites because of the errors that you all had in your code. So make sure that you're really paying attention to the spelling, the location, how you're typing into Notepad++, so that there are no errors going forward with it. And I already mentioned the splash page, so like I said, this time around you'll be working on your very own splash page. And then as far as SoundCloud goes, remember that as soon as you're done with your interview and you have that file, that you bring it into Audition and you master it. And then once you master it, you can upload it into SoundCloud and insert that link into your website. So those are a couple things I wanted to also refresh on. And lastly, just to remind you of the requirements that this website will consist of. So the first one is your splash page. So this is one of the aspects that you'll be working on this week. The second and third one are the About Me and the Leader in My Community. Reminder that the About Me is a website, or is a page in your website that is about yourself and who you are. And then the Leader in My Community is about the person that you're doing this website on and their interests and so forth. If you have any questions about specifically what should be going on in these websites, please feel free to either reach out to Bobby or myself so that we can answer those questions for you. The recorded interview is where a couple Q&As from your interview will be located. So just to see that a mini transcript of the interview that you conducted. And then the fifth page is looking forward, which will consist of study skills, leadership skills, and tech skills that you wish to learn more about in the future here at ITA. And so we're going to go into Canvas just to show you how this module is set up. As always, we have our video page with our to-do list. We have our presentation page with this very same presentation. We have the slicing activity prompt. So if you follow this activity prompt closely, you should be able to learn how to slice so that you can bring your design into Kim's content. And I've included some images, or not included some images, to show you if you can't just read off the text. So you should be good to go on that. And lastly, here's the submission box where you'll be submitting the zip file. I have attached the requirements of it. So the first big requirement is that the splash page that you have created for your website, so your own images and whatever you want the entered text to be. And the second big requirement is that although this website will contain Kim's content, so the very same content that we typed up in cohort, it will not contain your website design that you have been working on prior to spring break. And so, as a final reminder, make sure your folder and file structure is correct, because if we can't run it, I can't give you any points because you're not paying attention to the whole debugging of the website. I have the utmost, I have the utmost belief that you all know the skills that it takes to create a website, and I think that it's just like errors that you may have. And so just make sure that you're paying attention to the debugging and making sure that there's no errors in your code. And so does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, so like my website is going to be about Hazel Simonette. She's someone in my community that I admire. And so when I'm doing the design, like my banner already says Hazel Simonette, but then it's going to talk about like Kim's mother and like Kim. But that's what you're looking for, right? Like where it's like a placeholder text kind of stuff.
So we're kind of splitting up the creation website in a couple parts. And so this first part is just you applying your website design onto a literal website. Right now we're not looking so much into the text of it, since we know that you already know the skills to insert that into a website. We just want to see how you are able to apply a design onto a website.
So after I've got my design all about Hazel and stuff, and it's this placeholder text, after this, I mean, all I have to do is actually put in my real text, like my reports.
Essentially, that will be the next step after this week, yeah.
Okay.
Yes?
What are some resources we can use if we need to brush up or if we need help on during our coding or debugging? Yeah,
so first and foremost, if you all see Julie or Chris at school, I'll recommend going to them first, just because they're next to you and they can see your screen and answer any questions regarding any of those questions that you may have. The second resource would definitely be reaching out to us, sending us maybe screenshots or the file itself so that we can look at it and run through it and point out any errors that you may have so that we can give that feedback to you. And then lastly, rely on your peers as well. If you get in groups with maybe some of your friends in your cohort, maybe you all can work through each other's problems as well. So those are 3 different ways that I think you could approach that question.
Would it be okay with you if I took the website I coded for Kim, and then just started changing it up so that it's my own design, and then just submit it as a zip file?
Yeah, so yeah, it's more than okay. At the end of the day, as long as you submit your design with content already there, maybe if you want to start inserting your own content, that's totally okay as well. But as long as your design is applied to a website and it has your very own splash page, you should be good to go for this week. All right, bye, sophomores.